Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest podcast. I am Eric Kane alongside Rob Lewis and Brent Hubbs here on the YouTube channel. Of course, wherever you get your podcast, you're listening to us. We thank you. We have constant conversations on the Journal's Quarters each and every single day. It's fall camp time. Rolling right along. Week 3 is underway. Scrimmage number 1 took place a couple days ago on Saturday. Scrimmage 2 is coming up on Friday. Big takeaways, Brent Hubbs, from the first scrimmage for Tennessee football. Obviously not a finished product, but it was a starting point.
Yeah, I think I'm probably still waiting for the first scrimmage where an offense dominates. I think it's kind of the norm that defense seems to play better in the first scrimmage than offenses typically do. I think there was certainly some frustration over the fact that the passing game was not any further along or didn't perform better. I shouldn't say further along, but didn't perform better, particularly early in the scrimmage. So I think that's probably where you start. I know we're going to dive deep into the quarterback situation moving forward, but Rob, I think because they were beat up and sort of where they were, they probably didn't tackle as much as they normally would. But I think in the line of scrimmage, there's probably both sides of the ball came away feeling pretty decent about themselves. Rodney's never happy, but I think that he knows he's got quite a bit to work with. And then I think on the offensive side of the ball, and they're a better looking group, and that's no offense to those veterans that just left, but they look the part, and I think there's a lot to work with there with the offensive guys.
Like you said on the line of scrimmage, probably one of my biggest takeaways would be that the reports you heard that they had success running the ball on the ground, and to me that's all positive about the offense because there's just no worries about the defensive line in my opinion. Maybe I'm naive or missing the boat. But I think Tennessee is going to be a top quarter, top third defensive line in the SEC. So I think if you're hearing reports, they're finding some daylight in scrimmages with an offensive line that's looking for 4 new starters, I think that's a big positive.
Yeah, I think for me, I think we're all in agreement that we like this defense. This defense is going to lead the way. This defense should be a pretty good unit, pretty sound unit. And you couple that into the fact that, it's first scrimmage, Brent, as you pointed out, defenses usually outperform the offenses, every fall camp and in the early portion in that first scrimmage, and that's what happened. As Rob pointed out, Tennessee, I expect Tennessee to run the football well and effectively this year because that's what Tennessee's done every year under Josh Heupel, and the fact that Tennessee was able to do that in scrimmage number 1, that was encouraging. Pass pro, another conversation. The passing game in total, another conversation, along with the quarterbacks. But I guess for me, Brent, coming out of scrimmage number 1, there was sure, there might have been some frustrations a little bit from the lack of the passing game and all that, but nothing really surprised me. I didn't think the quarterbacks were going to go out there and light it up. I thought they were going to struggle a little bit. You talked about this in the 2-minute drill a little bit. The command, the operation, it felt like it's pretty smooth. There could always be better, and they got to take some steps, but being able to operate in the offense efficiently, that was a positive that in scrimmage number 1. So things I was looking for or things I was expecting to hear post scrimmage number 1, nothing really shocked me, I guess.
Well, I think you have to put the big wet blanket on it, if you will, a little bit too. Just where they were at the receiver position, where they were at the cornerback position. Clearly not at full strength. Mike Matthews went through it, but he wasn't live, meaning you couldn't tackle him. Colton Hood's in a red jersey on the defensive side. Ricky Gibson didn't go. Brazel didn't go. Braylon Staley didn't go. So it was an opportunity for those young guys. And I think Travis Smith has made plays, and I think you got some confidence developing with him. I think Rodarius Jackson continues to exceed everybody's initial expectations from when he signed. I think everybody liked him, just didn't know how far away or how long it was going to be until he was ready. And I think he surprised everybody with how much, the steps he's made since he arrived in January and really understanding the offense and understanding some of the nuances of playing the wide receiver position. So
Hubbard, that kid just turned 18 last week too.
Yeah. He's a young kid who's just starting to figure it out. And, I think that's a positive. Does that mean he's going to go out and, set a record in the opener against Syracuse? No, I think everybody has to understand that, this is a team that's got to grow and develop and at all positions. But you're trying to find some individuals. And I think that's what you're looking for is who can help me, how can they help me, and where's the best way to help me. For example, at the Leo position we're looking at there, is Jordan Ross a pass rush guy only, or is he a guy who can play all 3 downs? Those are things you're looking for right now. You know, Herring's got to be a 3-down guy. He's put on the weight, but where is Jordan Rawson becoming a 3-down guy? At linebacker, where's a guy like Jordan Burns? Where does he factor in? I think he's kind of flown under the radar here. I don't think a lot of people have talked about Jordan Burns. I think he has done some good things. He's going to be a staple on special teams, but he may be a guy who's in your rotation at linebacker that you feel better about him than a lot of people thought you were going to. A lot of people I've spoken with the last few days really like the way the linebacker group performed on Saturday and the way they look. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And I think that it's far beyond how many touchdowns did you score? What was your stat line? I think it's a lot about who do I feel like I can trust and can help me right now. Because think about it. I mean, you know who your starting linebackers are, right? You know where you are on the defensive line with your top 6 guys or so. In the secondary, you know where you're going to be when Colton Hood's healthy, and then when Jermon McCoy gets back, you're going to be deeper there. But who is your third and fourth safety? Is Beasley your third safety? Who's your fourth safety? Where are you? Obviously, looking for some help at wide receiver. The big questions that remain about this team are going to remain about this team till they play football against Syracuse, in my opinion. Right, Rob? I mean, we're not going to know the answer to the receivers until you see them play against somebody else, because you're not going to know the quarterback answer until you play against somebody else.
And those are the 2 big ones. I mean, that's it. And I mean, it's a broken record to talk about the receivers. I mean, the quarterbacks is stating the obvious, but the receivers. And I'm not panicking, or not. I'm not suggesting for anybody to panic, but I mean, that's not a positive that so many of those guys were out or not at full speed and on Saturday.
No, it's definitely not. It affects the quarterbacks, and everybody wants to know about the quarterbacks. We're going to talk about what we know, what we believe here 2 weeks into fall camp, heading into week 3. I know it's a lot of coach speak in there, but compiled all the answers as to Josh Heupel about the quarterbacks: Joey Aguilar, George McIntyre, Jake Merklinger. Here's what Josh Heupel had to say after the scrimmage about his quarterback play in the scrimmage and, of course, through fall camp so far.
Close to game day, we try to make practice like game day. When we get into our team periods, how we function, operate, make it game day like officials, that type of thing. But this is as close as you're going to get. So them having to own it, control situations, unique situations that come on just in the normal flow. And then, the situations that we put them in, 4-minute coming out today. So football awareness and control and everything. Yeah, overall, there's a few things that we can clean up at quarterback, but really on both sides of the football too, some subtle details, which at this point in training camp, you're constantly growing and pushing to go master the details of the game. And that doesn't just end during training camp. Good teams continue to get better throughout the course of the season. And these guys have had a good mindset, have grown each day, but we got a lot more that we got to get to before we get to kickoff. I'm not naming a starter today, all right? But all 3 of those guys have shown some really good characteristics of doing some special things with the ball, also managing the game, eliminating negatives, and there's some things that each of them and collectively as a group we got to get better at, and that's always the nature of it at this point in training camp. Yeah, with what we're doing offensively in our installs, from protections to run game, controlling it, and what he's seen on the other side of the football, how multiple we've been here in the early part of training camp. I really like overall what he's done. There's still more for him within the structure and the details of it, but I like what he's done. We haven't gotten a chance to go watch tape, so
but
if you want to hold a press conference afterwards, I'll be able to answer. Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't anticipate us dramatically changing the reps right now. Well, I think George, we challenged him post spring ball in some of the areas that he had to grow, some of that physical, some of that fundamental and technique. You've seen a lot of that growth from him, and you've seen his level of play be dramatically different than where we finished spring ball. And that's, from day 1 of training camp. He's had good presence, good control of what we're doing. There's some areas that he's going to have to continue to grow in, as all of our players have to do at this point. But I really liked what George has done so far.
Well, for starters, I don't know why he didn't want to name a starting quarterback on Saturday. I mean, what are we doing here, right? But in all seriousness, That's what Josh Heupel had to say about the quarterbacks. Again, abundantly clear. We don't get to watch the scrimmage. Okay, we're not there. Media is not available. Media is not allowed to watch the scrimmage. But Brent, it sounded like of the three quarterbacks, and you and AP talked about in the 2-minute drill, it sounds like George McIntyre was the most accurate. Might have had the best day, but maybe a little bit of a caveat there. He was going against the 2s and the 3s, but then you factor in hardly any receivers or cornerbacks were playing, so a lot of those guys were the same on multiple teams. Felt like George had a good day. Felt like Joey Aguilar had his moments, did throw a pick 6, but also flashing some moments. And it sounded like of the three, maybe Jake Merklinger had the worst of the trio.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway from what Coach Heupel said and talking to people, and yes, I think George performed. I think George had a good day. I think George performed better than probably the expectation people had for George to perform. I don't think that means George is getting the keys to the car right now. Okay, nobody's turning him loose with it and saying, "Hey, it's yours." It's not close to being that. I think what George has done through the first 2 weeks of camp, and this is my takeaway from George, and this is my opinion, and you guys can totally disagree with me, and I won't hurt my feelings in the least. My takeaway from it is all George has done is continue to insert himself into the race. Does that mean he's going to win the race? No, I mean, I would be surprised, really surprised if he was Tennessee's starting quarterback. Okay. I don't think Tennessee's going to go to Atlanta with George McIntyre as the guy. But Josh Heupel said it, Rob, in the post deal when I asked the question. They don't plan to dramatically pair routes or reps or dramatically change the reps. They're still going to try to equally get all three guys, quality, reps as they can get in there. That tells me George has done a good job staying in the race, because I think a lot of us thought it might get pared down after the first scrimmage, and it doesn't seem like that's the case right now.
No, I think that's significant. I mean, because I'm not going to say Josh feels like, he's under the gun or he's got a self-imposed deadline, but, the quicker you get this thing down to 2 and then 1, the better for everybody. So, that would clearly, as the head coach, your preference would be to pare that thing down. And the fact that George, has not, his play hadn't allowed him to do that, I think speaks a lot about the kid. I mean, because if you were handicapping the thing, you would think the true freshman that had never taken a college snap would be, an easy cut after the first week. All right, we gave you a fair shot. You're no hard feelings. You should be behind. But no, I mean, he's, like you said, Hubbard, he's inserting himself in there, and I think that I would, like you, be surprised if he's the starter in Atlanta. But it speaks well to just the kid's makeup and what he's got going on mentally.
Yeah, he just hadn't gone away. And again, that's a credit to him. And I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Of the three, maybe down the line, he could be the best quarterback. I think he's going to be really good. So give him credit. I think he's had a really good fall. I think he obviously, as you pointed out, he had a good scrimmage the other day. But in a perfect world, I mean, leaving scrimmage 1, heading into 2 weeks into camp, heading into week 3, in a perfect world, you want to pare down those reps. You want to focus on 1 to 2 guys, because again, Syracuse is getting closer. And this week we're in right now, Brent, you kind of did a good job of breaking it down. This is technically kind of like the last full week of true camp, because next week's going to be a mock game week. They're going to go through the week as if they're playing on Saturday, and then the following week it is game week. It's time to go. So those reps are going to have to be pared down. That's why I think Friday is huge. Friday, second scrimmage, right, wrong, indifferent. You're going to have to pare down those reps. You're going to have to pick a guy or 2 guys and move forward, because again, the season's getting closer, and those guys need all the reps they can get.
Well, I think what's going to be fascinating about Friday and the feedback we're going to hear on Friday, everybody's going to want to know who performed the best, and obviously that's the overarching storyline. But my thing is, how do they divide the reps up Friday?
Yeah,
I mean, has George done enough that you're going to give him a long, hard look, or are you going to give him a legitimate look with some number ones, throwing to number 1 receivers and with the quote starting offensive line? Are you going to give him some first team reps against the first team defense? I think that's heading into the scrimmage. I think that's the big question right now is where does that shake out? Because that says a lot about what this thing looks like in terms of whether, even if George is not the starter, and again, I don't think he will be, is he the number 2? Or is he going to be clearly the number 3 non-factor guy? I mean, those are things that I think are going to be interesting to see how it develops this week. I know this about George. What's fascinating is Joey Aguilar is 6 years older than George McIntyre is. which is kind of crazy in a room. At that age, 6 years is a lifetime. I mean, a lifetime of living. 24 to 18 is vastly, vastly different, right? But I do think even though George Robb is kind of that baby-faced, all-American kind of looking guy, I think he's got some competitive in him that probably people don't realize. And I think he probably sees a bit of a window right now. And I'm curious to see how he attacks this week if he feels different, right? I mean, if you go into that first scrimmage and think, I'm going to get a couple of series here, we'll see what this looks like. But you get more than you thought you were going to get, and you perform well coming out of it. How do you attack this week if you're George McIntyre? My guess is he is after it this week and continues to try to put the pressure on those guys because he's got nothing to lose. Yeah. He's not supposed to win it. The pressure is really on Merklinger more than anybody else.
I would agree with that. And how many of these kids like that we talk to right now, Eric? I know you. I mean, and you stand beside each other a lot in those interviews, like that are going to be sophomores, right, or going to the second year. Jordan Ross, or whoever. Just man, I didn't really take it all that serious last year, but this year it's way different. I'm locked in. Blah blah. George McIntyre's locked in right now. He doesn't have that freshman mindset, and I don't blame a lot of those guys. I mean, I'm not saying Jordan, and Jordan Ross is just what I remember. There's been like 6 or 7 of those kids, say the same kind of thing. But my point being, George McIntyre is not your typical freshman in that regard. He's not looked at the depth chart and said, screw it, I'm not gonna get up at 6 and watch film or whatever. I'm not gonna play this year. He's going for it.
And not to say that the other two quarterbacks aren't competitive as all get out, but I'll tell you what, GMAC, that's where he falls in the same line as his head coach, right? Josh Heupel, that competitiveness, that fire that drives you, and of course GMAC certainly has that.
Well, think about this. I mean, we talk about George, but think about how different everybody in that room. Of course, Joey wouldn't have even been here, but I mean, life dramatically changed for everybody back last April in that room. Who embraces that, right? And who can't handle that? Okay. I mean, Jake Merklinger went from thinking, I'm going to be the backup. The only way I'm playing is mop-up duty or if Nico gets hurt. That's the only way I'm on the field. George is going, I'm redshirt. I'm not going to play. I'm going to get a handful of snaps here and there. Joey Aguilar is on the West Coast. Now you throw all them into it, and you learn about the mental makeup of all three of those guys, I think, as you go along. They're all competitive. It's one thing to be competitive. It's another thing to see how you handle that competition. Go back to the first press conference when Joey Halsley stood in there and talked to the media and talked about these guys competing. I mean, this is Georgia's first ever quarterback battle. This is Jake Merklinger's first ever quarterback battle. I mean, those guys were they were the dudes at their school in high school, right? Now they're trying to go win a job that's very winnable for all three of them. And that was not the case in April. So who handles that moment the best? I think that's what we're looking for this week. You kind of, maybe you got a glimpse of it in scrimmage 1, who comes out of scrimmage 1 and handles it the right way, and who really changes things in scrimmage 2. Does anybody do that? I think this week's really fascinating from that standpoint, quarterback wise.
Have we ever had a legit three guy competition?
Not at this point. I mean,
so. I mean, not like where somebody just wasn't getting,
right.
A courtesy look.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say George came out of the blue, out of no man's land, but I mean, it's kind of not what you expected it to be. And you think about quarterback races, you think about years where they played young quarterbacks, true quarterback battles, and all those types of things. There was kind of always a little bit of an initial pecking order if it was a 3-man deal, right? I mean, like you go back to 94, okay? It was Jerry Colquitt's team in 94. Then he tears his knee on the 7th play. Then you're in a state of flux. And everybody was like, well, it's not going to be Todd Helton's team. He's going to Major League Baseball. Like he was a baseball player on a football scholarship. But then you had 2 freshmen, So now all of a sudden you sort of paring it down. It's not really a 3-man race. It kind of was a 2-man race. In 2004, it was Ainge and Schaefer. There was nobody else in the conversation, Rob. I mean, everybody was like, Tennessee's starting a freshman that year. There was no one else to handle a conversation. In 05, it was Eric Ainges, and Clausen just wouldn't go away, but it was a two-man race. There wasn't a third. So to your point, Rob, I don't know when you would have to go back and say, when do you have three guys legitimately competing for a job? And right now it feels like that's where you are heading into this second scrimmage.
There should have been a three-man race when Dobbs was here, but he was ignored.
Fair point.
Here's my question for you guys. And y'all been doing it for years and years. And I remember, doing it on the radio, the practice reports, and obviously the observations here. But it's not, you hear, take, one player who shined, last Tuesday or whatever. Did you hear about him on Wednesday or Thursday? Like, it's a collection of notes to decide how a player or how a unit or how a battle or a team is doing over the course of a camp. It's a collection of notes. So with that being said, we've talked a lot about GMAC. All right. Brent, your overall thoughts to this point in camp, knowing we don't see a lot of practice and obviously we didn't see the scrimmage, but what you have seen and what you have heard, what is your overall thoughts on Jake Merklinger and Joey Aguilar?
I think Joey Aguilar is a guy who's continuing to get comfortable and trying to get comfortable in the offense. Here's why I don't put a great stock in the pick six in the scrimmage. And this was a great point made by a poster on the board. I don't remember who it was. I'll give it credit. I didn't see it. I don't know what happened. Receiver run a wrong route? Was the ball late? Was the ball tipped at the line of scrimmage? What happened to create that? You hear way through a pick six. The first thing you're thinking is he threw an out late and some guy jumped it like Alontae Taylor did against Kentucky and Will Levis and strolled into the end zone.
Or on the inverse Kentucky 2020 at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, I have no idea. How that came about. So I don't go, oh, that's a great panic. That's a huge panic move there. I know he's had interception issues in his career. He's thrown a bunch. I have no idea why he threw that one. Don't know. I mean, he's also got a quarterback's coach who's screaming in his ear to rip it all the time, right? Take chances, rip it in practice, rip it in the scrimmage. We want to see you, and we can adjust from there. I think Joey is getting better in understanding and managing the offense. I think the question, again, about this quarterback battle, and I think this is where you wonder about Merklinger and you wonder about McIntyre and you wonder about Joey, is I don't know that any of the three have some great physical trait over the other. Joey's got better legs probably, but I don't know that one of them is just terrifically better with their arm. So it gets back down to who processes, who makes the good decision, who has the ball for the next play, who turns a negative into a positive or negates a negative. Okay. Hendon Hooker could turn a negative into a positive with his legs. Maybe Joey can do that better than any of the three. Okay. But what if one of the other two quarterbacks, Merklinger or George, and both of them can run some, what if they negate a negative because they make a good decision and throw the ball away, or they hit their check down? Those types of things to me will go to establishing and settling this quarterback debate. Who can eliminate the negative, Rob, and who can take a negative and negate it, turn it into a small positive, or negate it and take the negative away?
And that's why, you would think that, the true freshman would be, have a, be the huge underdog. But when you're talking about negative and positive, again, Joey's not been in the system, but, the knock on him has been that, he's a quote unquote gunslinger and interceptions are a problem. And it's not like Merklinger has, just a ton of experience. And he's been in the room, been in the meeting room, been on the practice field, but, he's not got a ton of meaningful game reps. So it's a weird situation in that, George isn't maybe the underdog the true freshman would normally be in this situation.
Yeah, I want to see these guys out of the pocket. Clearly we don't get to see that in our little bit of a viewing period in practice. We don't get to watch the scrimmage. We saw GMAC run all over the place against twos, threes, and walk-ons in the spring game / practice. But when they do these drills, sometimes bootlegs, or when they had that little drill at the very beginning of practice when we're out there, when they're just kind of throwing on the run. From the little we've seen, it looks like Joey's pretty decent on the run. It looks like George McIntyre, that can be a true strength for him. And so when you go back to talking about making a negative into a positive, throwing on the run, escapability, you would think Aguilar would have the level up in that because he's been there, done that. He's got some experience, but I think that's going to be a strength for George as well. Where's Jake Merklinger in that regard? I don't know. Again, I just wish we got to see more in this regard. But obviously, quarterback conversation dominating everything in fall camp right now. Push comes to shove, when you leave that scrimmage on Friday, there needs to be a clear direction. I'm not saying name a starter or anything, but there needs to be a direction on, like, okay, we're giving this guy this many reps, this guy this many reps. It's a 3-man down to a 2-man. Hopefully there's some separation in that scrimmage to where the guys are going to be playing against Syracuse and beyond can, try to take advantage of these reps heading into the final 2 weeks before the season opener.
Well, if you're putting a scout team together a week from essentially today, which is what you're looking at doing, if you're putting a scout team defense out there, a scout team offense out there, it's got to be pared down. Okay, I mean, it's because you're starting to game plan against an opponent, and that's what happens starting next week. And part of that is to get ahead. Part of that also is, Rob, just to teach guys how to go about the business, how you go about understanding a game plan. Think about it. I mean, let's go to basketball for a second, Rob. How often do you hear Rick Barnes in the first month of his basketball season talk about his kids taking a scouting report? Some guy didn't take the scouting report the right way. It is a learning process. In basketball, you got 30 opportunities to do that, so you build on it. Football, you've got 13, and you want to be that way out of the gate. So they use this week to get a jump start, but also to help guys understand how to prepare through a scout and how to build something. That's why you got to have a little bit more of a defined pecking order of things when you roll into practice next week.
I mean, we talk about it a lot. Obviously, there's a big physical difference. But if you're a young kid coming in, and the attention to detail, whether the film room or the practice field that's a huge adjustment. You're talking, hand placement, where you take your first step. And all those kind of things you're talking about, Hubbard. It's all that goes into why you got to. You want to start working with the 2 deep that you're going to be playing with as quickly as possible.
A lot of quarterback talk right now. Let's shift over to center. Someone's got to snap the football to the quarterback. Sam Pendleton, a little bit limited this past weekend in the scrimmage. Needs to get back to 100%, but you know who your tackles are if healthy. Wendell Moy is going to be one of the guards. Jesse Perry's had a great fall camp. Shami Morrow has been right there as well. We've pretty much well documented that. It all comes down to center to see who's going to solidify this starting 5. What are we hearing about center right now? The tidbits from the scrimmage, tidbits from practice. Where is Sam Pendleton? If he is healthy, is he the center? If William Satterwhite ends up holding on and winning the center job, does Sam Pendleton shift back to guard? Brent, to my knowledge, he hasn't been practicing guard at all in fall camp. Of course, he's played guard in the past, and he did all spring. Where are we at the center position, specifically with those 2 players?
Well, I think it's a matter of who consistently does what he needs to do in terms of snapping the ball and the fundamentals of it. And I think that's why I give Sam Pendleton the edge, even though he's new in the offense. I think he, from an execution of fundamentals and those things, has been more consistent. And here's the thing. When you're playing a young quarterback, the last thing you want, who's new in the offense, last thing you want to have him do is have to wonder his eyes all over the place to see where a snap's coming from. You don't want him to take his eyes off what he's seeing out in front of him, or he doesn't want to have to, try to find the ball and then regather his eyes to see downfield where he's supposed to go. So I think it's going to come down to just fundamentally who snaps the ball the best. And it sounds like Satterwhite, who's had issues snapping the ball consistently since he's been here, has had some of those issues again in this fall camp. And if that's true I'm taking what Glenn Ellerby said is where I'm deriving that from, and then talking to some other people, then I think you got to put Pendleton, if healthy, as the front runner to win that center job. And that may get probably gets your best 5 on the field with Pendleton at center and Jesse Perry at right guard. We talk about McIntyre and we talk about young players. The guy who's just said it's mine is Jesse Perry. Yeah. He said it's my job. Come get me. And I don't think anybody's coming to get him right now. I think he's continuing to say it's my job. You're not getting it.
Let me ask you this. Is there a situation if Pendleton's at center, let me rephrase this. Is there a situation, can Perry play both left and right? I know he's at right now. Can he play left if needed, or is Mo versatile enough? Like, say Sham wins the job, can Sham only play left? What's the versatility in the interior with those 3?
I think Wendell Moy.
Moy, sorry, my messed that up. Moy.
Wendell Moy has the the versatility to play either side. You go back and look, he played some right. I think he played 125 snaps of right guard, 123 snaps of right guard at Arizona last year, and he played 500 or 600 snaps of left guard. So he's played both. He played some right guard his first year at Arizona as well. So he's a guy who could play either side. Could Perry do it? Perhaps, but basically he's worked right guard, right tackle. So it would be a real change for him as a young player and some of his footwork and hand placement and all those things. I don't know how much they've cross-trained him to left guard, because I think when they go with the twos, Perry has gone to right tackle from right guard. I think he's just stepped out a spot. So I think he's mainly played the right side. And it sounds like from all accounts, Sham is a left guard and a left guard only.
Yeah.
So I think Wendell would be your swing guard if you needed there. And what I mean by that, so if you're looking at your best five, let's say Pendleton's your best five with him at center. Okay. And you had a situation where Lance Hurd had to come out of the game for a series or two. You're probably you may be looking initially, you might go Bennett Warren for a series or two, but if it's long-term, you're going to flip David Sanders to left tackle. You're probably going to bump Jesse Perry out to right tackle. Then you're going to take Wendell Moy and flip him to right guard, and then you're going to play Sham at the left guard spot. So you would make potentially 4, possible position moves ultimately in that possible scenario. That's not an absolute, but that's sort of a possibility as it looks like right now based on where everybody's been practicing.
Do you think, and I know you and AP talked about this on one of the podcasts last week, do you think Bennett Warren could be the swing 3, meaning he could be the first one in, back up left or right, or do you think it plays out like you just said right there? If for some reason David Sanders is not a right tackle, you probably just kick Perry out.
I think that you're hopeful that he's that guy, that Bennett Warren's that guy. My guess is if you have a situation where you're looking for another tackle, Rob, you're probably playing both those guys. You're probably trying Bennett Warren there because that's less moves if you can, but at the same time too, you probably feel most comfortable kicking Jesse Perry out to right tackle. Now, you're trying to figure out how much does that disrupt everything else? Does that make us worse? Or are we better just trying to survive with a Bennett Warren out there at right tackle and go from there? Bennett Warren's been playing basically left all fall camp, Rob. He's been the backup to Lance Hurd, and Perry's been playing, right tackle with the second team.
And that's a pretty wild question to think about. I bet you that they would want to go Warren right tackle just because they'd be so adverse to making that many changes, moving that many spots. So I mean, if you could survive with him at right tackle at all, I think that would be item number one. But my second point that I was thinking of as you were rattling off all these names, I mean, how does that bodes pretty well for Tennessee's offensive line down the road when you're talking about true freshman David Sanders, second-year guy Jesse Perry, second-year guy Bennett Warren. I mean, there's been some criticism of the offensive line recruiting in the past, and maybe well-founded, but I mean they're kind of getting some guys in the pipeline now.
Well, it's a high school prospect recruited and signed and developed by this staff is going to start for the first time this year. People can say whatever they want about that, and that's fair in my opinion. It was going to be David Sanders no matter what. People can say, "Oh, well, Tennessee just paid for him, whatever." You want to end that argument, or at least put some stock in that argument right now? It's, hey, Jesse Perry, look what he's doing, because Jesse Perry is the definition. Wrote about it last week. We talk about it all the time. Guy didn't pass pro, saw him, signed him, developed him, and he's on the doorstep of being that right guard for Tennessee this year. So, also another point I was thinking of during that conversation, Rob. And again, this is the way you practice. It is what it is, right? Get out there, and it won't be a thing in a game or two. But you're looking at an offensive line potentially to where you got some guys who play a lot of football on the left side and some guys who will play no football on the right side, like with Perry combined with a true freshman and David Sanders.
Yeah, and this happened before. I mean, we've seen Tennessee. I mean, Rob, was the year it's Juwan James and I guess James Stone, and
how many of those kids played that year? Zach Fulton.
I mean, they're rolling a bunch of those guys out there.
A lot of NFL guys.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's look. I mean, the fact of the matter is, college football is a younger man's game. Is where it's at. And again, I mean, had Larry Johnson stayed, he would have been your third tackle.
Yeah.
Playing left or right, and he was a guy with some experience had he elected to stay, but he didn't. I think what would be interesting back to, and not to rehash all the moves and all the talk, I think how you handle that would depend on how long somebody's going to be out.
Yeah.
If it's just for a series or two, you're probably handling that differently than you are if a guy's going to miss a game or a couple of games and you've got time to prepare for it. I don't know that you're making all those moves mid-game for someone. You're probably going Bennett Warren right then. Would maybe, but we'll see. I mean, I think that's why you cross-train as much as you have, and we'll see. I think my biggest takeaway, again, I'm not surprised at all by David Sanders. You wanted him here. You believed he was going to be a great player. So I've said it for months. You can't have him standing on the sideline holding the clipboard. You went and got Wendell Moy out of the transfer portal to be a guy. Lance Hurd is the guy you got a year ago to be the guy. The story of the offensive line for me is Jesse Perry. And I think that one's a really wild story and a really interesting story, a really good story. It's a guy who's put in a ton of work to put himself in a position to be one of Tennessee's best 5 offensive linemen.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Before we say goodbye here in a moment, I want to go over some of the guys who've been, held out, banged up, red shirt, yellow shirt. we got a couple yellow jerseys out there at practice. I guess that's a step up from red, right? It's like, not full speed, but you can thud, right? Thud. You can thud up a little bit.
Where's the old traffic light when I need it, Rob? Where's the old red light, green light, yellow light to know whether we're live or we're in thud or we're in no contact? Where's that thing at?
That's a great pull.
Hawk might have that one down there with the orange dog somewhere in his office. I'm not sure.
There's been receivers in and out. I know Tennessee's thin, entered camp thin at wide receiver and all that, but another talking point, another surprise, not a surprise, but another positive of fall camp so far. And we've all talked about it a ton. It's the tight ends. Tight ends feel like there's 4 guys that can play, 3 guys that you feel really good about from a physicality standpoint. Of course, your top 2, Ethan Davis and Miles Kitselman. I think Brame's coming along. Brame just continues to stand out. Everywhere you look, there he is. Every time you talk to somebody, it's like, number 7.
Brame was a quick twitch dude, man. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with him this year, but long term, that guy, I would buy stock in Deshaun Brame.
And maybe it's just me. But it looks like he gets bigger every week on the practice field. Looks like he's added 5. Looks like he's adding weight during fall camp. I mean, I'm out there looking at him Monday. I'm like, is he bigger than he was last week?
And he told us 2 weeks ago that he's up a little over or right around 40 pounds since January, which is.
It looks like he's up 43 or 45 since the start.
He's done a great job. So I guess what I'm getting at here is you like where you are. I mean, Alec Ablin's sitting there, just feeling good about where he is at tight end. Running back. I mean, Josh Heupel went out of his way to praise Star Thomas the other day. I thought that was noteworthy. Everybody knows that Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis are going to, they got experience. They're going to lead that room. People continue to talk about DeJuan Morris. I think he's going to be a factor on special teams. Can your tight ends, I'm not talking about if Braylon Staley's not in the slot or 12 personnel or whatever. I'm not saying put Brame out there in the slot, but Rob Brent, can this offense really rely on your strengths? Deep at tight end, deep at running back. Can you run 12 personnel? Can you incorporate tight ends in the passing game? Hell, can you incorporate running backs in the passing game? I know that's a foreign concept here. Can you rely on those strengths? Because it does feel like where you have questions at quarterback, questions at wide receiver, you feel great about tight ends, and you really like your running backs.
I mean, I don't know that the tight ends can totally take the heat off, but Ethan Davis to me is one of the most fascinating guys on this team. I mean, hasn't done a lot yet. I mean, you knew he was kind of a project when he came in, but I mean, it feels like it's an now or never for him. And I just feel like he's really talented and is a guy that, some kids can make that transition. Some can't, be it from being a jumbo wide receiver, but you got to feel like this is it. I'm really interested to see, what he can do because he's just a unique weapon out there that we've not seen in this offense. I don't know. What do you? I mean, is it gonna happen for him or is that?
I don't know. I think it's on him. I mean, I think it's one of those deals where it's like you got to be more than a guy who runs a slant inside the 5. Like, there's got to be more to your game there, and I think there is. I mean, I think he's made progress. I think he went through probably a period of time where he was kind of wondering, hey, do they believe in me here? Because every time I look up, there's another transfer guy coming in over top of me. Like, Are they going to continue to bring in a transfer? They didn't go out and get a transfer this past year. Okay, they got Kitzelman back, and I think, then you're looking at, that's two talented freshmen, but when we talk about freshmen making impact, there are more freshman offensive tackles making impact than freshman tight ends, because you're asking the tight end to know so much stuff. It's hard for a freshman tight end to make just a huge, huge impact. So I think if you're Ethan Davis, you probably look around and go, they believe in me, because they didn't go get Miles Kitzelman any help with an experienced guy, right? It's me and Miles are the old dudes, and we're supposed to bring the young dudes along. Now, the young dudes can have a lot of skill set and a lot of talent. They may be further along than any of us thought. But yeah, I mean, I think Davis should feel pressure for the first time in his career to show up and to factor. I think this is more now. If you're Alec Ablin, you can say, man, I'm laying it on a line for you here. Like, we didn't go get it. We didn't go get anybody because we believed in you. You got to respond the right way to help us. And so we'll see how he responds to that and how they use him. To answer your question, Eric, we've heard about tweaks to the offense, right? There's been talks about tweaks to the offense. What do those tweaks look like? What are those tweaks involved? Are those tweaks tight ends? Are those tweaks more rollouts with the quarterback? Are those tweaks swing passes to the running backs? I mean, I don't know that this group of back has the greatest hands in the world, but I think they've gotten better with their hands. How much do they use them? Is that a potential wrinkle that's out there? I don't know. You go back and you look. There were a lot of guys open downfield last year that they didn't connect on. They missed some open guys that could have changed the land. I mean, you look at the Alabama game. You hit a couple of those early that you had, you win by 3 touchdowns. So I think some of those are going to be there. Are you going to connect on those? Is this offense going to be, in the eyes of some, a little more pedestrian at times, and maybe they drive the ball a little bit more? I mean, possibly. But I think you also have to plan for that, because how many teams are you going to play, defenses are you going to play, where the coordinator is going to say, you know what? Hell, I'm not giving up a 70-yard touchdown pass. Drive it on me.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can execute for 12 plays and score.
NC State.
And finish in the red zone. We'll see if you can do that. And if you can, then you're going to beat us. But we'll take our chances that you're going to jump off sides, or you're going to have a holding penalty, or you're going to misfire on 3rd and 8 and have to punt. We may play it that way. We may challenge you to be more methodical than you want to be. If that's the case, what's Tennessee's answer to that schematically? That would likely include, I would think, the tight ends and the running backs more, Eric.
Yeah, I just sit here and still with so many questions, what do you feel good about? And you feel good about tight end, and you feel good about your running backs. So to me, I'm just like, why not lean into that? And again, you're right. We've heard there's going to be some tweaks. They're not showing us a lot of those tweaks when we're out there at practice, nor should they, right? But could you incorporate a little bit more of those guys' safety nets, helping a new quarterback out? I don't know. I'm intrigued. Every time I look up, number 7's catching the football, looking good doing it, right? And I know there's more to football than a tight end catching a football, right? There's inline stuff, H-back. But every time I see those tight ends do something, I'll walk away impressed.
Well, here's the thing I think for this team, as we wrap it up here, and you guys can jump in, obviously, with this. This team better not be a finished product week 1 or week 2 of what they are offensively, because they have so many questions that they're still answering, starting with the quarterback position. Then you obviously look at the receiver position. I think the question about this team is, how much do they develop week 1 and week 2 heading into week 3? And then how different are they in October than they were in September? And how different are they in November than they were in the first couple of months of the season? How much do they grow? I don't think that offense a year ago grew. And in fact, I think they probably reverted back into a shell and became a little bit more about just Dylan Sampson. You look at what they did the first couple of weeks throwing the ball, and it felt like they were not going forward. They were going sideways or backwards with their offense. How much does this offense grow and evolve from week 2 to week 3 to week 7 to week 12?
Boo Carter update real quick. Felt like he did more special teams in the scrimmage. He's been out there at practice. Latest on Boo Carter. What other boxes does he need to check?
Well, I mean, there's still more boxes. I mean, he fielded punts and when the punters were kicking in the stadium without there being 11 guys on the field.
Yeah.
Now, Josh Heupel would ask and press about, did he participate in the scrimmage? Yes, he participated in the scrimmage. He went out and fielded punts, and they weren't live. Clearly he's got to work his way back. And I think it's I know Austin jokes about me. I do think it's stacking days. I don't think he can say, okay, I did everything right 1 week. That gives me a pass to be late for something, or that gives me a pass to not do something I'm supposed to do or be somewhere I'm supposed to be at the right time. Like, he's got to do that to continue to win back his teammates, win back the trust of people. That's why I think Josh Heupel continues to reiterate there's no timetable at this point. And that doesn't mean he can't be back. That doesn't mean he's not going to be back. That doesn't mean he's doing things wrong. That just means everybody's going to practice looking to see, is he on time? Is he there? Where's the first guy you look at when you walk out to the practice field, Eric?
Luke Carter.
It's 23 out here.
Yep.
That's kind of what everybody is doing at this point in time. He's got to do that over and over repetitively to continue to win back people's trust. I don't think you do it in a week and say, I'm back. I think it takes time.
Rob Lewis, what do you want to hear coming out of Friday's scrimmage?
Is it too generic to say you'd like to, I'm just going to say, the biggest thing, quarterback. Is it down? Are you down to 2? Has somebody been eliminated? I doubt that Josh would even announce that, but it would probably be obvious as you move into, the mock week of practice. So I would just state the obvious for me. Is there some clarity at quarterback coming out?
Yep, I think that's mine, Brent. Obviously, it's the biggest story of camp. I want to hear somebody took reins of that and just balled out. And sure, mistake here and there. Nobody's going to be perfect, but I want to hear Friday that one of those 3 quarterbacks really, really stood out. And George McIntyre, again, I'm not going to say he was perfect, but he was kind of the standout scrimmage 1. Heck, can he do it again in scrimmage 2? Is it Joey Aguilar? Is it Jake Merklinger? I want to hear that one of those quarterbacks truly was separated from the pack in scrimmage 2. And, we'll see if that can happen. Obviously, if that does happen, then, those reps will kind of go from there.
Well, for me, I think I'm more on the, and this is, I guess, a little bit semantics, but I want to hear that there's some rhythm and some continuity to the passing game in general. And I think you can structure a scrimmage for somebody to win the competition if you want to. You can set somebody up. We've seen that. We've seen guys go put up big numbers in a scrimmage because it was basically built around that guy taking the reins on something. I want to hear about just in general in the passing game. Ball's not on the ground. Balls aren't dropped. We've seen too many routes versus air practice periods where they get off to a slow start. Again, Saturday scrimmage was a slow start offensively in the passing game. I just want to hear that there's some rhythm to the passing game. Now, if you have that, that probably means the quarterback's running and doing something and taking the lead in that, which is what you guys are saying. But I also think it's wide receivers and not just the quarterback. They've got to have some kind of rhythm to a passing game that feels very unrhythm-like when you watch it right now. It's a little bit helter-skelter. Balls underthrown, balls dropped, good balls dropped, balls thrown high. They're just too erratic in the passing game and the small sample size that we get to see.
Yep. Also would like to see some more guys out there participating. Of course, we'll have to see what that looks like. That's a day-to-day thing. He's Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis. I'm Eric Kane. A lot going on right now. Volquest.com, right in the middle of fall camp, Brent. And we got daily updates, conversations happening over on the General's Quarters. We got stories on the front page. We got nuggets on the GQ. We've got video. No better time to join us than right now. $1 for your first week. And, season's right around the corner right here at Volquest.com.
Yep, absolutely. There's no reason for you not to be a part. Absolutely no reason. There's a great deal. There's lots of great storylines. There's lots of fascinating storylines. There are a lot of things about this team that are going to be debated and discussed for the next couple of weeks. And then we're all going to get to see it, obviously, in Atlanta. And you're going to want to talk about it. You're going to want to talk to us about it. We're on there all the time talking to you guys about it, and we're going to continue to do that. So if you're not a part and you're only getting your fix through our podcast, that's great. We appreciate it, but there's a lot more to it with content that we're producing on the site as well as our message board community. So you would be wise as a Tennessee fan, in my opinion, to take full advantage of this offer and be a part of the Volquest family.
Practice coming up this morning, off day on Wednesday, practice Thursday, scrimmage on Friday, and of course we'll have the Volquest Mailbag podcast for you on Thursday morning. So go ahead and get those questions sent in. Brent will put a thread on the board today, and we will be taking your question submissions there on the General's Quarters. All right, appreciate you guys for being here. We'll talk to you again on the website later today. This is the Volquest podcast.